I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about how your ex shut you out. Now, in this video, we have got some interesting research on, I would say, a relatively new way we're seeing people shut each other out in relationships. Okay, so this is a bit unusual, but we're starting to see it more and more. Coach Victoria did some research on this one. Well, what do you got today?
So I found this new article by Bustle. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's basically one of those reporting networks, if you will, that send out articles about different topics, and a lot of it is like new and interesting stuff. So this one was one by a woman called Rebecca Fishbane. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And she talks about a concept called therapy speak. So if any of you have been on the internet recently at all, or if any of you are following accounts like ours and or similar accounts that talk about mental health, therapy, relationship issues, you've likely come across a certain type of verbiage, a certain type of way that we talk. We use certain terms, certain type of vocabulary that people can use and turn around to block and shut other people out. So this is what she calls therapy speak. And it can include buzzwords. In the article, she talks about self-care and boundaries a lot, which is something that we do talk about on the channel quite a bit. And it can also be ways of phrasing things to say the right thing. Sometimes even on this channel, we will give suggestions or ideas on how to verbalize or express certain thoughts, ideas, and emotions. And some of you will take that on word for word and use it with your ex. You know, during calls, sometimes I like to say, hey, put whatever you want into your own words. Put this concept into your own words for it to be natural. You know, this is what you want to convey. So this can be used and manipulated to shut people out, especially when we're talking about boundaries. Let me give you some examples in case this isn't clear, because I understand it's a bit of a confusing concept. So the article uses examples such as, I no longer have the emotional space for blank. Or, I don't have the capacity for this conversation. Or, I'm going to have to reschedule. This is a boundary for me. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yes.
So it's a way of ending a conversation, even ending a relationship sometimes, in a way that it leaves you not being able to negotiate, not being able to have a conversation. And what we're saying is not that boundaries are bad. In fact, boundaries are really healthy. But what we are saying is that sometimes our therapy speak, our over-intellectualizing things, can cause us to detach from the emotion from it, can cause us to detach from meaning and actually having productive conversations where all parties feel heard and understood.
Yeah, so I imagine you might hear this from people that are manipulative, and instead of trying to really express themselves in a healthy way, they're using these words as a technique to not really deal with things, right? So if somebody says to you, I no longer have the emotional space to have this conversation. Well, what if you guys just started trying to talk about it and they say that to you? You're like, well, wait a minute, I thought we were going to talk about this. And you're feeling hurt and feeling like I'm trying to, repair this and understand you. But they're like, oh, I can't because I don't have the emotional space.
And I actually had a situation not too long ago where this was the dynamic between him and his girlfriend. He would always ask her, okay, hey, I want to talk about this. And she would say, no, you have to ask if I'm ready for this conversation. So he said, okay, yeah, sure. Every time he asked, hey, are you ready to have this conversation about this specific issue? She was never ready. So what's the point of, setting in place these boundaries and these things that are supposed to make things more emotionally digestible if we're using them to avoid exactly that?
Yeah. It feels very toxic. Right?
Yeah. And on this channel, we do talk a lot about things like boundaries, self-care. We also talk about personality disorders, psychological issues, psychological concepts. And so sometimes these terms can even be used against people, like narcissist, borderline personality disorder. They can be used as ways to label people and to distance from having conversations.
That the narcissism term is getting thrown around all the time. In fact, you told me about one today.
Oh yeah, I did. I did.
You want to share the example?
Sure. This was somebody that was dating somebody for a short period of time. They did live together, so it was quite an intense relationship. But everything that he did, she escalated tenfold. So she would say to me, okay, he's a narcissist. I know for sure. I can just get the vibes. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me more about it. What exactly did he do? Like, what specifically was narcissistic?
He ate the last pretzel.
That was it. That's one of the criteria, actually. Eating the last pretzel.
It's in the DSM.
It is. But in this case, she had said something about him liking another girl's Instagram post. And so we cannot deduct from that piece of information that somebody has a personality disorder.
No.
Right. So this is what we're talking about, is that using certain buzz terms and buzzwords to distance ourselves from having talks about what bothers us, our emotions, etc.
Yep.
So how does this relate to relationships, to breakups? We're going to tie it in all together, I promise. So some of us do have the tendency to overanalyze things. If you're anything like me, then you do this, because I definitely do this a lot. So overthinkers, raise your hands. Raise your hand, Craig.
Am I an overthinker?
Sometimes.
I used to be a lot more of an overthinker.
Now you're an underthinker.
Now I stopped thinking about it. What were we talking about?
But we do sometimes have that tendency to intellectualize what we are feeling. And so this can distance us from feeling our feelings and end up being really counterintuitive, really counterproductive. We can end up analyzing so much and trying to find the most politically correct way of saying things, the right way of saying things, the exact phrase we have to say to get our ex to feel this or that, or for them to want us back, that we miss the meaning, we miss the opportunity to connect. And sometimes simplicity really is best, but you also have to remember specificity. Man, I'm using all these big words in this in this video about not
People
using big
you're
words.
talking about therapy speak being bad, and yet every word out of your mouth.
I'm trying my best. So sometimes there is a lot that you can gain from simple and from also being as specific. So in relationships, we see this a lot, that we use generalizations. You're always making fun of me, when really you mean a specific event that hurt you. Or it could also be a general statement like, I don't feel safe around you, when it's one or a couple events that really scared you about your partner. So being more specific can actually help your healing. Okay, tell me about that event. What happened? What about that scared you? Let's break it down. Another thing that can be really helpful in conversations with your partner, with your ex, really in any conversation, is using open-ended questions. Let's say your partner does set a boundary with you. Okay, that's a boundary. I see it, I respect it. How come? How did this boundary come about? What experiences in the past led you to having to set this boundary? Also, is there any negotiation room? Is this a hard boundary that, it's a hard no? Or are there some exceptions to this? And also, why is it important to you? What I really hope that you get out of this video is coming back to the meaning, coming back to the significance. And in terms of self-care, if somebody says, I cannot do this, I'm taking a self-care day, I'm gonna have to cancel on you. Sometimes we view self-care as an isolated thing, especially avoidance, especially those with more avoidant attachment styles. sometimes they can use that term self-care as a tool to isolate themselves even further.
Yeah.
I'm just taking care of myself. I'm having a self-care day. When instead the most productive thing or the most helpful or healing thing might be to share whatever they're going through in communion. So are you connecting with your partner, bringing your partner in, being able to relax in their presence or not? So some things to consider.
Yeah, the thing that we really want you to understand is that, incorporating therapy terms into your relationship can be helpful, but we don't want it to be used as like a manipulation form of escaping dealing with things or not communicating. And I think what Vicky's saying here is she's starting to see more people use these terms to get out of really expressing how they're feeling or, shutting down, like an avoidant, just instead of saying, hey, I know we had plans and I'm sorry I have to cancel, but I'm just not feeling up to going out tonight. I'm sad or stressed or something like that. They're just saying, I need a self-care day. And it's like, it almost feels like there's a bit entitlement to it. It almost feels a little bit personality disordered, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, to not really care about how the effect is on on the other person.
And the article mentions this. They talk about this concept called mutuality, meaning considering both parties' emotions in making a decision and in how you communicate. Because you setting a hard boundary, if you try this with kids, for example, you set a boundary with kids, they're going to scream, they're not going to understand until that moment that you also are able to have empathy for them. This is mom's boundary. You cannot watch TV for endless hours of the day.
Yeah.
I understand that this is hard for you. Let's go do something else instead.
Yeah. I know you don't like it. I'm sorry you don't like it. I'm sorry you're sad. Always going back to the feelings can help.
Yeah.
Happy, sad, scared, angry.
Yeah, and
Those
if it's hard to pinpoint exactly what the feeling is, you can ask, is it within the realm of mad? Is it within the realm of sad? Just trying to have more of that conversation.
Some people just don't know how to express it.
Yeah.
Like my 5-year-old.
I think like most 5-year-olds.
We're working on expressing feelings. I'm sad. I'm mad. Okay. You're allowed to be sad. It's okay to be mad.
Yeah, exactly. And so we want to make sure that we're treating our partners with respect even when we do have to set a boundary. So there's no politically correct way to have a relationship. For those of you who are slightly perfectionistic like me, this is for us. That there's no right way of doing things. There's no right phrasing or perfect combination of words that's going to get you the outcome that you want. Vulnerability does go a long way in relationship. So remember that. And there is what works, what's healthy and what's safe in relationships. So as long as it falls under those categories, then you're good. It doesn't have to be something spotless. And sometimes we can, just going back to that overanalyzing, we can analyze our partners so much that we forget what's going on inside of us.
Yes, especially if you're anxious.
Oh yeah. So I'm here to remind you and remind myself that you're not your partner's therapist. You're not your partner's psychologist. Sometimes we can put ourselves in that position, especially if you're a natural caretaker. You can see how things are playing out in their life. You want to fix it for them. You want to process it with them. And it's great to be a supportive partner, but you ultimately cannot heal things for them. So remember to use I statements, bring the focus back to what you're feeling instead of trying to analyze everything that's going on within them. And this is actually something that I do see on calls a lot too, is that, I try to focus on whatever you think is important and talk about that, but I will also add what I see as an outside observer. And sometimes I can see that you guys get so hyper-focused on this is my ex's history, this is their past relationships, this is their attachment style, this is what they're thinking and going through, when we're missing a huge chunk of what it's like for you, what's keeping you hanging on, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. So don't use overanalyzing your ex as a way to distract from your own personal healing, your own childhood wounds, all of these things that we talk about.
And your needs.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's big. It's okay to say no. And sometimes it's healthy to set boundaries and say no, especially if anybody is being mistreated or abused in any way. In those cases, you have to set a hard no and not accept any of those things. And you'd be perfectly right to say, it's in my boundary to keep your hands off of me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm kidding, but of course, I'm serious at the same time because we don't want anybody to be in toxic relationships. And some of what we're expressing in this video is toxic behaviors because it's not about really using these terms to better understanding and have a better relationship. They're almost using them as escape tactics and manipulations.
And one thing that I did hear from somebody once is that sometimes those with specifically toxic traits will end up going to therapy to learn how to manipulate better.
Yeah.
So be aware of that somebody can sound really articulate. Somebody can have all the words, expansive vocabulary about all of these deep psychological concepts and be able to explain themselves away, but ultimately not be able to connect with you, ultimately not be able to show empathy with you.
Yep. And you always want to remember how you feel and what your needs are. I know you love your ex and you miss them and you want them back, but it's just as important for you to be getting your own needs met and being in a relationship with somebody who cares about those things. All right, so hopefully this one's been helpful to you.
And hopefully it made sense. I had some therapy speak in there.
So a lot of therapeutic terms, and then you said keep it simple.
Did.
If you want to get our help personally, you can get it on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype, and you can get Victoria's help as well.
I'm here whenever you need.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.